Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Casting Seeds. I'm Savannah, your host.
Jeremiah, your co-host.
I almost wanted to say that you're the host today because you did so much background work. Jeremiah prepared a lot for this episode, you guys, but you are listening to the only holistic health podcast that uses God's singular truth to give you individualized
Healthcare.
discernment.
And healthcare.
True. Jeremiah and I were laughing before we started because I was like, how do I know? I have to read that every time. And I don't have it memorized. I was trying to say it off the top of my head, and I bet you some of you guys probably say
better.
it with me. But it's okay. No shame. But today we are going over drum roll. Is there a drum roll on this sound kit?
I think bottom left.
This one?
Yeah.
Purple?
Try that. And then you got to turn up the volume a little.
No.
No, that's crickets. I guess we're leaving this episode.
Where's the drum roll?
I don't know. You got to keep trying.
Okay, let's try. Wait.
Oh, she's pressing everything. Oh, we don't
Let's
have
just
a
do the
drum
pretty
roll.
sound. Let's do the pretty sound. I like that one. We're doing Biblical Herbs Genesis.
That was really lame.
No, it wasn't. It was magical. Just like how the book of Genesis seems kind of magical, especially, I don't know, to me as a Christian, let alone a non-believer.
Yeah, it sounds like a fairy tale.
But it's not.
No.
It's biblical fact. Okay, so honey, what are we going to be going over today? Because Genesis is a big book and it has a lot of info in it.
It is a big book, but not a lot of herbs are mentioned. But I think we're going to be targeting some of the major herbs throughout the entire Bible.
Ooh.
And we're going to reference a certain type of herb, or not herb, but medicinal extract called balm.
Okay.
And that'll be throughout the entire Bible. So I'm really excited to get into Genesis and really talk about this with you.
Is balm the same as lemon balm?
I believe it's different. I think balm is a way you extract the sap or the juices from a tree or the flower. So
okay.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little bit more.
Because in Greek, lemon balm, like the name for it, it's just nicknamed balm because lemon balm is like the fresh smell of it is sweet, like honey. So the Greek word goes back like balm.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, so then balm is sap. It's not from a plant like lemon balm is. Or I'm sorry, it's not
It
a
is
flower.
from a plant. It is, and it is from a flower.
What?
So you can get it from the flower. Oh, I'm sorry, the flower bud, not the flower itself.
Okay.
Once it flowers, it's a little different.
Okay.
But before that, it still has all its
Well, we can get
context.
into it, right? Okay, so we're starting with grains today, which in my mind is because I cannot eat grains. Most of them, at least.
But the fermentation of grain we can consume.
Yes. But it sounds like grains was used all throughout the Bible. It's very specific. God used it in tons of parables. It was used in
everything.
Yeah. Jesus talks about that how he's the bread of life. And even manna, I think, was a type of grain base. Well, at least so it's described. So grains is really important when it comes to the Bible and even the representation of Jesus. But where is it first mentioned in the Bible? Because I know it's mentioned in Genesis. Do you have the verses for that?
Yeah, I do. So Genesis 41:49, Joseph gathered very much grain as the sand of the sea until he stopped counting, for it was immeasurable. Can you imagine counting grains?
No.
Can you imagine finding a needle in a haystack? It's like, could he even see the sand underneath it?
Well, and that's why in Genesis 42:1-2, it says, when Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his son, why do you look at one another? And he said, indeed, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to the place and buy it for us there, and we may live and not die. So even like in biblical times, grain was a representation of life, of food, and like the source of life.
Yeah.
And it also was very easy and readable to grow. I know that when it comes to herbalism, we don't talk about grains being grass, but it is in the grass family. And my name being Savannah, I actually used to hate my name because I hated that it was called a grassy plain. Like my name literally means grassy plain. I hated that more than life itself. And I'm so thankful for my herbalist teacher, Shayna, who said to me one day, Savannah, there's no reason why you should be ashamed that your name is Savannah. And I was like, well, okay, why? And I now love it. She was like, grass and grains and all of that family, they are the most resilient. That whenever a fire happens or a flood happens, what is the first thing that grows back?
Yeah.
Grass and grains. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you know that I also did a post recently on what some of the best grains are in different properties in different places. But specifically when we're talking about grains, Jerry Glover, he really focuses on perennial wheatgrass because that is natural in the Americas and in the savannah. I'm sorry, not the savannas, but the natural prairies in America, as opposed to different grasses grown in the savannas and different grasses grown all around the world. So then the same thing would go for different wheats, right? If you guys ever have seen in a field around, even here in Southern California, you can see that there are those, if you look at what's considered weeds, they have those long, tall plants, and in the plants, you can see the little seeds in them. That's a type of grain. And I mean, we have tons of buckwheat around here also, which is a type of grain. But if you do the natural type of grain that's meant for your area, it's going to grow. And you can look at Jerry Glover's photo on my Instagram, holistic_wife. You can look at the photo and see how deep the roots go, which is getting much more nutrients, so much more water, and much better filtration in general, as opposed to the agriculture. Like literally it's so shallow. It's like maybe a foot deep, as the other ones are maybe 7 feet. Here, I'm going to show a photo to Jeremiah.
Oh yeah.
See that difference? It's crazy. Yep. It's looking at the difference of annual crops and stuff. And
very cool.
Yeah. How it really does bring such nutrient dense nutrition into your life and into your body, but we're used to just wheat, not all the other different kinds of grains out there. That's why the Bible says grains, not just wheat, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Do you, Jeremiah, when you think of grains, do you actually think of like the bread of life? Like that's why for me, the first thing I thought of was celiac disease. Maybe.
Well, I don't really think of the word grains very often. I don't know. We don't really talk about grains. I think in relation, I would think of wheat and barley, beer, and what do you call it? Breads in general, which I can't have either. So that's life.
And that's the thing too. It's not really discussed that much in our household. And can I just say, for all the gluten-free people out there, how awkward is it during church when we break bread and do like the body of Christ and we're drinking the wine, and not that we do grape juice.
Yeah, we've snuck in crackers, like gluten-free crackers before.
Well, sometimes if we know what's going to happen, but it's so awkward when you're sitting at church and then they're like, okay, time to drink and pray, and then time to or eat and pray, or whatever order they do it in. And then the people next to you, when they don't see you pick up the cracker or you fake eat it and they notice, it's like,
you don't want his flesh?
Yeah,
Excuse me?
People literally come up to me afterwards and I can tell they're kind of probing as Christians. Like, so do you go here? And I'm like, yeah, I've been going here for 9 years. I promise I'm a Christian. I'm just allergic to bread. It's so awkward every time. So churches, this is a shout out. Please, why not just make all of your stuff like gluten-free? Just do it. Do the Lord's Supper.
You got corn, you got rice.
Literally, there
bread.
are so many things. But anyway, on to the next thing.
All right, let's jump on over to honey.
Yay.
Not an herb. It is a byproduct of herbs, of
bees.
Feces. It's bee feces.
It
throw
is.
Up. What? It is throw up in their poop.
No, it's not.
Where do you think the bees poop?
1 second.
They eat the pollen and then throw it up.
Is honey bee poop, spit, or vomit? Here's the truth. Many people no, honey is not bee poop, spit, or vomit.
What?
Boom.
I've been lied What is
because
it?
that's why I was like, that doesn't sound right. Honey is made from nectar by reducing the moisture content after it's carried back to the hive. While bees store the nectar inside their honey stomachs, they have honey stomachs. Why is that so cute? The nectar is not vomited, pooped out before it's turned into honey. Not technically, at least. You could argue that it is spat out by bees.
Oh my gosh, come on.
But the principal ingredient used to make honey is nectar, not saliva. So that's why they don't say that.
Okay.
I feel like we both just learned something today.
I know. How does the nectar get into their honey belly?
I'm so glad that you asked, Jeremiah. Worker honeybees collect nectar from flowers using their tongue to store it inside a crop sac known as honey stomach. The honey stomach is expandable so it can hold nectar as the bees carry it back to the hive. It's really cute. Then they get kind of heavy from the honey stomach. They like kind of droop a little when they fly.
So they still technically consume
Wait.
but into
Let me
a
finish.
different sac than their
It's not a stomach. It's a honey stomach. Because while the nectar is inside the honey stomach, it's mixed with special enzymes. We're all going to become bee masters today here on the Casting Seeds podcast. It's mixed with special enzymes to start the honey making process.
Huh.
Yes. Upon returning to the hive, bees then regurgitate the nectar from their honey without using extra enzymes. So it's just like, bleh. Which I don't know why.
Sound?
I don't know why they don't just say vomit. That's pretty much what it is. And they pass it mouth to mouth with other worker bees. While doing this, they fan it with their wings to reduce the moisture content between 13 and 18%.
Wow.
Once it reaches its point, it's considered honey. And bees store it once it is, okay, so now it's like a glucosey texture. And they can store it inside the encapsulated honeycomb cells.
Fun facts.
Why honey bee is technically not vomit is the next point, which is really funny because I just said, to me, it's vomit.
Yeah.
It says that it's not because in order for something to be vomited, it has to be swallowed. And this is a separate pouch and it is just taken out of the pouch.
Man, somebody really had to dissect bees.
Yeah. Look at the honey stomach. There's a little diagram.
It's inside of the abdominal.
The abominable snowman.
Yeah.
It's alongside the stomach. So the stomach's on the other side of it. Sorry. So I guess it's not spit, not saliva.
It's like a kangaroo pouch.
Basically, it's kind of, honey is just
What?
like insect saliva.
We love it. Anyway, jumping over to probably the most used Bible verse that we'll end up using.
Why?
Because you'll see in the Bible verse.
Because what? Oh, okay.
All right. So Genesis 43:11. And their father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best fruits of the land in your vessels and carry down a present for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds.
Oh, that's why, because there's a lot
It
going on
covers
in
everything, basically, yeah.
Oh.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to bring up honey is because of the vitamins and minerals. The vitamins and minerals content of the honey can vary depending on the flowers the bees visit. Some plants may contribute higher levels of certain nutrition.
Yeah.
There's antioxidants and antibacterial and antimicrobial properties. That's a hard word.
I know you did a great. And anti-inflammatory and allergy relief as well.
Some honeys are renowned like throughout the entire world. There's I think it's called Tuolung honey. And it's supposed to be like anti-cancer properties and stuff like that. And then there's the Manuka honey, which is delicious. We have that.
Yeah, Manuka honey is known for boosting your immune system.
Yeah.
What's that honey that's getting people high from like Indonesia?
Oh, I don't know the name of it.
Oh no, it's making them trip, right?
Yeah.
They have some and then they trip out.
Yeah.
But it's from, again, the plants
that the honeybees are going to, and it's one of the most expensive honeys in the world because of how many people actually die retrieving that honey because it's so high.
It sounds,
and they literally climb on rope and vines to get that honey.
This honey sounds not worth it. Like, and by
I don't think even the bears go for it.
Yeah. It just doesn't sound like what's his face who ended up eating the honey out of the lion. Was it Samson? That's what it is. It's Judges 14, and it was Samson. Wait, yeah, Samson. Okay, so it was Samson, and he's the one who scooped out the honey out of the lion and ate it, and even brought some to his parents afterwards. But he didn't tell them because it was considered unclean.
Yeah.
So it was like, that's why it was sinful. So he did something that was not good, but he just couldn't help it.
Yeah.
Which also relates to his sin, like his temptation of, if no one can see, it's not a big deal with Delilah later.
Yeah.
He acts the same way when he allows her to cut his hair. And God's like, what are you talking about? I'm right here.
Interesting.
I'm not saying that's the whole meaning behind it, but I do know that he was one of those people that really struggled with it. But you said that there are people who do still eat this?
Yeah, they do eat it. So the type of bee that it is, it's called a vulture bee. And it's kind of like a maggot. Like they lay maggots in a way. Oh, and that's what produces the honey.
Samson, what were you thinking?
And this honey tastes smoky, salty, and like this weird sweetness. And the color is different. So it's not honey.
Is it bloody?
No, it's not bloody because it's processed. But the thing is, it is sitting on rotting flesh.
Oh, what? Who in their right mind?
Yeah.
Where are these bees located?
That's a great question. I do not have the answer to that, but they weren't really discovered until 1982. I do know that.
Weird.
Yeah.
They weren't discovered until then, but the Bible mentioned them. Whoa.
Pretty crazy.
It's like you think that sometimes the Bible like only talks about one specific instance, and then God's like, no. Oh, I just looked it up. So it says that vulture bees tend to, they're stingless bees. That's how he was able to scoop it out of the lion.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh. Proof that the Bible's real, you guys. They tend to live in more tropical rainforest areas in Costa Rica and Brazil, but they also can live in tropical areas near India and other places that are very lush. They tend to be found in tigers and other types of rotting meat.
Interesting. So I wonder maybe that back in the day there used to be another, I guess, like type of vulture bee that was in that vicinity.
Yeah. Or God just decided to use them.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It says also that vulture bees do not mix meats and floral substances. They only do that out of a protein source.
Wow. That's crazy. Pretty gross.
Anyway, so jumping from becoming bee experts, which no one expected today, not even Jeremiah and I for that tangent, but going to myrrh. So the first time it's mentioned in the Bible is Genesis 37:25. And they sat down to eat a meal. Then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices, balm, and myrrh, on their way to carry them down to Egypt. And then the next one also is Genesis 43:11 again, that we mentioned in the last one, where it says a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, pistachio nuts and almonds.
Yeah.
So myrrh is a type of balm.
Yes.
But I find it interesting that it says bearing spices, balm, and myrrh. So it specifically mentions myrrh out of the balms that they brought. And God mentions myrrh again, specifically throughout the Bible all the time.
Yeah.
So myrrh must have some great
properties.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a good difference to say is balm. I believe they're referencing to the area that it's coming from, which is Gilead. And there was something called the balm of Gilead, I believe it was.
Okay.
Yeah, the balm of Gilead.
So is that why it's differentiated between the two?
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So myrrh in particular is high in antimicrobial properties, anti-inflammatories. It's super high in antioxidants, right? Than most balms, which is what gives it pain relief and digestive health. I didn't know it was great for oral health. I knew it was really good for skin.
Yeah.
But that makes sense because if it's antimicrobial. It's going to be good for the mouth.
Yeah.
And also it's obviously used for...
Yeah, and it's mentioned throughout the entire Bible. So like Exodus 30:23, anointing oil and perfume. John 19:39-40, burial practices. Exodus 30:34, incense and offerings. And it mentions medicinal uses. And then Matthew 2:11 for gifts and trade. It's very valuable.
Yeah, and I wonder why too. Maybe because it had all of these different benefits to it, that's why it was lifted and so much higher than the rest. But I don't hear a lot of people, but then again, I'm a Western herbalist. I don't hear a lot of people discussing myrrh and using it for their body. I know, which we're not talking about frankincense today, but I know that one of my clients is using frankincense to specifically just the essential oil, not even just actual real frankincense. She's putting essential oil on her knee to help with her joint pain. And she said it works amazingly.
Yeah.
But when it comes to myrrh specifically, I think it would be cool to use it more in our daily life. For some reason, when I think about myrrh though, and like saps and syrups, it sounds I also maybe because I think of myrrh and I think Christmas time, but it sounds like something I would put more in a cider or ferment into a whiskey type of a thing and use it medicinally like that, as a tincture.
I'm surprised, you have your bookstore. I'm surprised we don't have an herb store with all of the herbs from the Bible.
I would love that. I would love to own that store. How do I own that store and then have people?
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Also today, you guys, we are using, to give credit to this book. Not all of our information is coming from here, but some of it is. You guys know that we like to source always. But we are using Herbs of the Bible by James A. Duke, and he is a Ph.D. in herbalism and also theology.
Nice.
So it's cool also getting his background, which is where we got some of our information from myrrh as well. So when King Ahasuerus, I don't know, when the guy who captured Esther, I can never say his name, when he selected her as his future wife, he bathed her in myrrh. And the king was very rich also because he had a lot of myrrh, which is really interesting. And there are 135 spices of myrrh specifically, all throughout Africa and Arabia, growing mainly on different regions, but that's why there are 135 variations.
Cool.
So in her book, in Esther specifically, all of the plants of the Bible inserts that myrrh mentioned in the Old Testament came from a small plant that grew among sand and rocks called rock rose. So the myrrh that they're specifically talking about is really rare. And that one has golden spiral pieces on it that they call tares or pearls, and it comes from a small tree. So it's kind of like a shrub. So
that book's kind of cool.
Yeah. That
gave you a description of the plant.
Right. And it also has a drawing, which I really love. It also
cool.
talks about the different folklore and different religions, which we don't care about. So that's fine. But I find it interesting that Ethiopians still to this day eat myrrh, their roots raw.
Oh, cool.
And Ugandans pound the unripe seed and add water to make a warming beverage.
Oh.
Right? And West Africans...
So it's a tea.
Yeah, but it naturally self-warms, which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
West Africans use myrrh as an insecticide to repel termites as well. Nigerians plant the spiny myrrh shrub as a hedge around their gardens to keep things away.
Yeah.
Myrrh bark is also a good source of tannins. So when you use tannins in wine. And myrrh wood has various uses for firewood and tool handles in general. So
it's a sturdy wood, and it'll
if it
burn
gets big
longer.
enough.
Yeah,
not the rose one that we were talking about earlier, because that stays as a tiny little shrub that grows amongst rocks. But these that can grow thick, think about how some bushes, even rose bushes, the wood can get big if you allow it to. It can kind of turn into a tree. Myrrh wood and seeds are used in necklaces as well, and they extract the bark from myrrh trees as insecticide. And the last fun fact about myrrh is in Nigeria, a myrrh A myrrh medicine that they make, so like when they extract myrrh, is used to treat insanity and tapeworm.
I love how that's in the same.
Those are two
I would go
very
insane if I had a giant tapeworm. I get it.
I feel like those are two very different things, but for some reason it's insanity and tapeworm.
Yeah. I saw this really gross video the other day of a bear with a big old tapeworm coming out of him.
Oh, don't even. I've seen that video.
So gross.
No gracias.
Thank you for bringing the book. I like that.
We have more fun ones coming at you.
All right, let's jump over to balm. So balm is mentioned in Genesis 37:25,
which we already mentioned.
Yep, and in Genesis 43:11. So balm, I think they're referencing balm of Gilead. The way that it was harvested was gently scraping resin from the buds or the tree bark using a knife or similar tool to collect the resin. I kind of like the way I pictured it is just the way that they harvest. What is it called? Maple?
Yeah.
Or the chewing gum plant and stuff like that. They do the same thing.
Yeah, because it's going to be more gummy.
Yeah. But
which is used. Oh.
Yeah, no, go for it.
I was going to say, which is used for a lot of wound healing.
Yeah. And it's good for anti-inflammatory properties and antimicrobial. You notice a consistent thing that all these plants are really useful for?
Everything. Pain relief. Yeah. Well, that's what God says. Yeah. And that's what we went over in the first episode, is that all of plants are going to be used for medicinal purposes.
But like he literally told them, like, take protein and take herbs that will help him survive.
Yeah.
It's not like take him a bunch of fish or other stuff.
Well, fish is a protein, but yeah, he said that everything that lives and breathes on this earth will be food to you.
Yeah.
You just have to know. People don't understand that food is also medicine. So that's why there's a problem with our, especially American diet, the SAD diet, standard American diet. But yeah, I mean, even balm itself has pain relief, respiratory effects that are amazing. Medicinal purposes. Jeremiah 8:22 is a reference of balm from Gilead that you were mentioning earlier as a metaphor for healing. Is there no balm in Gilead? Is there no physician there? Why then is there no recovery for the health of the daughter of my people? I mean, they use it for trade, for commerce, gifts and offerings again.
Yeah.
It's every single one of these, I feel like, when it comes to balm, myrrh, saps, and all of those, they are so needed. And the fact that we only use like maple syrup.
Yeah.
We're really limiting our nutritional resources.
Definitely. We're limiting our microbiome.
100%. So it would be fun to kind of challenge people to go out in their local area and discover, one, if it's legal to do this. Only do it where it's legal and it's okay. Yeah. But if it's legal in your local area, to be able to harvest local sap from local trees and kind of discover those properties and really learn about those trees and get to know just your local microbiome and how you can ingest it. And it's fun. It should be fun and exciting with your husband, with your wife, with your kids. It should be a fun activity to understand God's creation more and how you can connect more with the world around you and allow it to help you as well.
Yeah.
You ready to get into some nuts?
Yeah. So I have pistachios here, but I couldn't really find anything really valuable on pistachios. It's really great protein, great energy source. It has vitamin B12, really healthy for you. It's mentioned in the same Bible verse, also Genesis 43:11. But I really think the next nut is where we want to jump over to, which is almond.
Well, pistachios too have really great fats and vital, they're known for helping your heart and your brain. Mm-hmm. And they actually, when they're grown properly and not overly processed, they actually were known for being a very high-end and expensive nut, especially because you can make them into a lot of sweet things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they used to mix same with almonds, right? Mm-hmm. But they used to mix pistachio and honeys a lot for desserts during Jesus's time.
Yeah.
So
it's very common tree back then.
Yeah. Pistachios are very nutritious. It's easy to grow. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, it's very profitable and delicious.
Have you ever gotten a pistachio with a maggot in it?
Why would I? How?
It's
Why
really gross.
is that the
That's
first?
why I like when I open pistachios, I look at every single one. People that just pop it in their mouth and like pop it in their mouth, I'm like, ugh, it's gross.
I've never. Has
It
it only
literally
happened
says
to you
on
one time?
no, I've gotten probably like 7 of them.
You're lying.
Now, if you go through a bag and you actually look, you can see like old husks in them and stuff like that. It's gross.
On that positive note, let's move on to almonds, which I actually have in the book as well. But you tell
Yes.
me, Jeremiah.
Also, Genesis 43:11.
Yeah.
Great vitamin B12, proteins.
Also Numbers 17:8 as well. When Moses went into the tent of the covenant of the next day, the staff of Aaron for the house of Levi had sprouted. It had put forth buds, pronounced blossoms, and bore ripe almonds.
Yeah, that is something really interesting. I'd love to try almond blossoms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that sounds amazing, but it is mentioned a couple times in the Bible. Just almond blossoms itself.
Almond benefits in general help with acne, help with asthma, cancer in general. I guess they're same with pistachios. I feel like I'm lumping them together a little bit. But almonds in particular help with coughs, dermatitis, laryngitis, and neuro issues as well. So it helps rebuild neuroproduction and neuro pathways in your brain,
Very cool.
which means it supports your fascia tissue.
Mm.
That's a fun fact. But the Hebrew word for almonds means diligence.
Really?
Mm-hmm. The almond tree, the first tree that flowers in Palestine, became the symbol of reemergence of the Jewish people after the destruction of the temple, the rod or staff of Aaron in Exodus. So that's why it was important. In Numbers, God had Moses collect the staff symbols of power and authority from each of the 12 tribes of Israel to plant them into the ground under the tent of the covenant. The next morning, Moses returned to the tent to find the rod of Aaron blooming as it was an almond tree. The limbs and blossoms of the almond tree became the model for the menorah. So that's that's why they have those candles on the 12.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The branches end in the claxus of the blossoms, resembling the cups that hold either the candles or the olive oil or the wicks. The ancient Israelites also valued the nuts both for the food and the oil that was pressed for them. They especially favored olive and almond oils for burning in ceremonial lamps and for anointing. Sweet almond oil, I mean, we talked about it in our biblical sex episode. People use it also for lubricants as well.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful scent. I love sweet almond oil, and it's nutritious. And as we mentioned before in the biblical sex series, we don't recommend like a lot of oil for the downstairs because it causes a lot of bacteria. And you'll have to go back and listen to what Jeremiah and I use. So according to rabbis and commentary in general, Hebrews see the sweet and bitter almonds as a metaphor for their people, living with a bitter and sweetness towards their heart towards the Lord. The flowering and thriving trees verify the growth and endurance of Jews. In contrast, the bitter almonds of themselves. I'm sorry. 3, 2. In contrast, the bitter almonds remind them of the days of slavery and displacement. But for Christians, we see it as their heart posture towards the Lord. Right?
Yeah.
They're constantly bitter, constantly falling away. And then on top of that,
That's why they need to be reminded.
exactly. So modern Jews in Great Britain carry these branches of flowering almonds into the synagogue during the spring festivals in Israel.
But yeah, that's really cool. Almonds, I didn't know there was so much meaning behind almond.
Yeah, almonds are, I feel like, way more important than what we give value to when it comes to biblical. Like I never realized that was the staff was made out of an almond tree.
Yeah.
I think I've read Genesis a bajillion times. Actual number, bajillion. It's probably the book I've read most in the Bible because I always start over reading it. And I don't think I ever caught that in a million years. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So we got one more, the last one on our list, which is
Aw.
grapes.
Grapevine, baby.
We all know that grapes have a really big importance in Jesus's first miracle.
First miracle, I mean, he talks about us being the vine.
Mm-hmm.
God uses grapes a lot.
Yeah.
The same way that I love Jesus because he talks about herbs so much.
Yeah, you got to prune that vine.
He loves his creation. I love it. Yeah. I feel like I need to get pruned all day. So John 15, 1-2, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that does not bear fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit, he trims clean, so that it will be even more fruitful.
Yeah, I actually have another Bible verse
Hit
from
me.
Genesis.
Ooh.
Genesis 40, 10-11.
Yeah.
And in the vine were 3 branches. It was as though it budded. Its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. Then the Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into the Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in the Pharaoh's hand.
Dang. Yeah, that's a beautiful verse as well. Thank you. Well, and as for the benefits when it comes to grapes, because I feel like people hear, oh yeah, wine helps with, your heart and all that stuff. Wine doesn't, but grapes do. So the benefits are arthritis. It helps with arthritis. It helps with heart disease. It also helps with herpes.
Whoa.
To be honest, I didn't know that.
Disinfectant.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's also an anti-inflammatory, but it helps calm the central nervous system as well, which herpes is stored in the spine. So it makes sense. Hypertension, a rheumatoid arthritis, and tuberculosis. Condensed grapes helped kids with tuberculosis. And grapevines are the first cultivated plant mentioned in Genesis, which I just thought was really cool. The vine became a symbol for Israel according to the book of Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Hosea. And in the New Testament, Jesus declared, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. In the first book of Kings and Micah, the vine represented peace and prosperity. When Noah stepped off the ark, he planted a vineyard, the first thing that he did. He also embarrassed himself by getting quite drunk off of the fruit of that vine. Do you know the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Noah, it was really bad because of his sexual encounters that he had afterwards. But 1 cup of wine is becoming to woman. 2 cups are degrading. And if she has 3, she solicits publicly. If she has 4, she solicits even an ass. And is that going to be, can I say that? Ass is in the Bible.
Yeah.
Even an ass in the streets and cares not. So for people who say that wine, because a lot of pastors will say that, like, wine back then wasn't as strong as it is today. If it says that 1 cup of wine is becoming to a woman, 2 cups is degrading, and if she has 3, it solicits publicly. If she has 4, she'll solicit even an ass, and she doesn't even care.
Sounds pretty strong to me.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I want to debunk when pastors say that. They had the same, not every wine has different alcohol content, but I'm going to tell you, their hooch back then was just as hoochie. Just as hoochie, okay? Recent research in general does show that women tend to get drunk faster on less alcohol than men. So I also do want to throw that out there to not just blame Noah. Also, another fun fact, vinegar was not a condiment in ancient Israel. That wasn't a thing back then.
Yeah.
But they'd use sour wine vinegar often, and it was a wine ration that was given to Roman soldiers. And it was thought to kind of strengthen the blood, make soldiers fierce, strong in battle, and also prevent diarrhea.
I feel very fierce when I drink fire cider.
Maybe we need to put grapes and fire cider.
I don't know. What if that ferments? into like
No, I mean, I put other
alcohol.
fruits in there. I do other fruits.
It's true, you do.
I've just never thought of grapes. The Roman soldiers also were known for being like intense warriors. And I also wonder if having to drink vinegar made them kind of like bad tempered a little bit in general.
I'm a little cranky when you make me drink mine.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Wine used to be used as an anesthetic as well to reduce anguish and especially in capital punishment. When Jesus was dying on the cross, he refused to drink from the sponge soaked in vinegar because he had to fulfill his fate and suffer unto his very last dying breath. So the vine was probably the first Bible plant to be cultivated on a large scale. It was grown by the Romans in France and Southern Europe. In biblical times, the vines were usually grown in vineyards and situated on slopes. So they're generally surrounded by stone walls to keep out wild animals and thieves. And that's why they were used as later trained to be cultivated into brush. And just in general, they were used along the outside of the city. So that's kind of where that stereotypical, when you think of like an inner city and then you see the farmers and the crops on the outside of the city, it actually stems from vineyards because vineyards needed more light. They needed to be away from higher walls. And that's where that stereotypical suburbia and farmland started, was from biblical times. And prior to that, back to Noah and before that as well. But I just found that super interesting. And also French researchers report that red wine significantly lowers blood pressure, but specifically the LDL protein in blood. So raising the beneficial high density of lipoprotein protein, which is HDL, cortisol. So it lowers cortisol levels. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And it helps cleanse the arteries of fatty deposits.
Crazy.
So that's why they say like a glass of red wine a night
Keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, isn't that the classic saying? But that's why among 30 wines were tested for red Bordeaux and white Bordeaux was the highest among lowering cortisol levels. So if you actually want it to be like a medicinal property in your life, you got to get white and red Bordeaux.
Is that like expensive wine?
It depends. I mean, it is exported out of Bordeaux, France.
Okay.
So, but
interesting.
I mean, if you're ever worried about having a lethal dose, just check in with Noah. It's one glass, ladies. 4 glasses, and you're going to be wanting a donkey, apparently. But there are lots of really cool remedies with grapes. And back in the day, they also used to make soaps out of it to help with skin rashes and diseases. Juice can also help clear throats. Raisins are amazing and a very cooling and sweet. They have a cooling effect. And you can use raisins to also make fermented yeast, which is also another way to make breads. And like grapes.
Yeah, we're working on that right now.
Yeah, grapes can do so many different things. They can also help you make wild sodas when you've made that fermented yeast, and just help your gut microbiome and also help with your fungal microbiome as well, because you're making that fermentation process, which supports your gut health. I know that also grape leaf juice is applied to tons of skin conditions, when people have cramping, when they have stomach aches, toothaches, just so many things for pain.
Yeah.
Grape leaves is used as an anti-inflammatory. Grape seeds contain edible oil that are also used, again, when I talked about soaps, but it's really hard to like collect all the grape seeds. So, but it's kind of similar to flax. Consistency. Thank you. And the Transvaal grape syrup is used for diphtheria, which is a very, very serious, ouchy symptom that people can get an illness. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to grapes, they also can be known for being an aphrodisiac, a diuretic, a laxative. It helps people purge. It helps people with fragrance. There are so many things that you can do with grapes. And I'm not surprised that God used it as his first miracle, because he talks about his father being the vine master and how we need to be like grapes on the vine, being willing to be pruned, being willing to be used, even when we don't feel like being used. And that's how Jesus responded to his mom that day. He was like, "Woman, it's not my time." And she's like, "Come on." And then he still provided, as he always does. But
if you guys haven't tried this, Go freeze your grapes.
Oh,
It's my favorite. Savannah just found this out.
I didn't know this was a thing. And those like cotton candy grapes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and I know people what is that? They make like sour gummies out of their grapes. They squirt lime juice on grapes and then they throw it in the freezer. And then salt. A little salt. And apparently they taste like, no. Jeremiah's a chamoy boy. I ain't down.
I didn't like the way that sound like a soy boy.
That's not the same, but I'm not down for chamoy. I'm chanoy. Noi, thank you.
Okay. We'll cut that.
No!
Yes.
People are going to like that. Keep it for
gosh.
days. Anyway, guys, we hope that this was actually, I felt like I learned a lot even just talking during this episode.
Yeah.
We hope that you guys enjoyed it. There was a lot of biblical truth in here, but on top of that, there was just amazing facts. And I now feel like a grape expert, a bee expert. I could basically teach a mead and wine class now.
So you'd use your grapes, create your yeast.
That was supposed to be a joke.
Oh.
There you go. I did it again.
So you'll use your grapes, create your yeast, put your yeast into your honey to create your mead. And then you could throw like almond honey or almond oil in it to give it some more flavor.
No, you don't do almond oil.
Why not?
No.
You could put whatever you want in it.
No. We'll discuss that some other time. You were correct all the way up until you said almond oil. But
I guess because it would separate. Oil is completely different.
I like the effort that you had though. Well, our dog just shifted because he is tired and sleepy, and so are we, and we have to edit this episode to air tomorrow. So we love you guys.
Adios.
We hope that this episode was casting seeds for you. We'd love to hear back on what you thought about biblical herbs
in Genesis.
Yeah. I guess that's what it's called.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And please, if you'd like to help donate, please donate back to this ministry so we can give back to you. Thank you guys so much, and
God bless.
Keep casting seeds. We hope you enjoyed learning how to cultivate God's creation from a biblical perspective. Holistic health is to prioritize whole person wellness through Christ. Like and comment on what topics we're casting seeds or casting pearls.
If you found this information provided useful, subscribe to our podcast for future updates, leave a review to help us improve, and share this episode. We would like to remind you before we leave that perfect health cannot be attained in this world.
Only spiritual salvation through sanctification and repentance to God and turning away from sin will give you a perfect body in the kingdom come. Nourish yourself in the Word, in prayer, and in biblical fellowship daily.
Thank you for joining us today, and a special thank you to our listeners for making this podcast possible.
Always praying.
Keep casting seeds.